New York City, November 1964, 2:47 p.m. Central Park was cold, early winter, the kind of cold that makes people hurry, makes them walk with heads down, makes them ignore everything except getting somewhere warm. An old piano sat abandoned near the Bethesda fountain. Nobody knew how it got there. Nobody knew who'd left it. It was broken, out of tune, keys missing, the kind of piano that belonged in a dump, not in Central Park, not anywhere people could see it. An old man sat at that piano, 70-something, gray coat with holes, fingerless gloves, the kind of old that comes from hard living, from loss, from falling so far you forget what the top looked like. He was playing, badly. The piano was broken, his fingers were stiff from cold, but he was playing, because that's what pianists do. Even when the instrument is ruined, even when nobody's listening, even when you've lost everything except the muscle memory of what you used to be. 4 young men walked past, British, coming from a photo shoot, tired, ready to get back to the hotel, ready to be done being the Beatles for the day. Paul McCartney stopped, not because of the music, because of the man. Something about him, the way he sat, the way his hands moved, like he'd done this before, professionally, like he was remembering something, someone, some version of himself that no longer existed. Paul turned to the others. Wait! And what happened in the next hour didn't just help one forgotten pianist. It reminded everyone watching that success is temporary, that talent can be destroyed by circumstances, that the people we ignore on streets used to be someone, used to matter, used to have names people knew, and sometimes, just sometimes, they deserve to be remembered. But to understand why what the Beatles did for this pianist made a city weep, you need to understand who he was, who he'd been, and how someone falls from Carnegie Hall to a broken piano in Central Park. His name was Arthur Zimmerman, born 1889, New York City, started playing piano at age 5. Prodigy, the kind that makes adults uncomfortable, the kind that plays Chopin at 8, Beethoven at 10, original compositions at 12. By 20, Arthur Zimmerman was famous. Concert pianist, Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center, Europe, Asia, everywhere classical music mattered, Arthur Zimmerman's name mattered. Critics called him the American Horowitz. Audiences called him genius. Arthur called himself lucky because he got to do what he loved, what he was born for, what made sense in a world that mostly didn't. He married in 1920, Elizabeth, a violinist. They met at a concert, played together, fell in love through music, had 2 children, David, Rebecca, raised them in a brownstone in Manhattan, filled their lives with music, with beauty, with the understanding that art was sacred, that talent was responsibility, that using your gifts was how you honored the universe for giving them to you. Arthur performed until 1955, age 66. Then arthritis started, in his hands, his fingers, the very instruments that had defined him, made him matter, made him who he was. The arthritis was aggressive. Doctors tried everything, nothing worked. Within 2 years, Arthur couldn't play professionally, couldn't perform, could barely play at all. His career ended, not with applause, with stiffness, with pain, with fingers that betrayed him. Elizabeth died in 1958, heart attack, sudden. Arthur came home from a doctor's appointment and found her on the kitchen floor. Already gone, already somewhere he couldn't follow. He was 69, she was 67. They'd been married 38 years, and suddenly he was alone. David and Rebecca had their own lives. David was a lawyer in Chicago, Rebecca a teacher in California. They called on holidays, sent money occasionally, but they were busy. They had families. They had lives that didn't include a father who'd stopped being famous, who'd become just another old man with stories nobody wanted to hear. Arthur's savings ran out in 1962. Medical bills from trying to fix his hands, Elizabeth's funeral, the brownstone he couldn't afford anymore. By 1963, he was living in a shelter. By 1964, he was on the streets, 75 years old, sleeping in Central Park, eating at soup kitchens, being invisible, being nobody, being the opposite of everything he'd been. Someone had abandoned a piano in the park, broken, worthless. But it was a piano, and Arthur was a pianist, so he played, every day. Not for money. Nobody gave money for broken pianos played badly by homeless old men. He played for memory, for the ghost of who he'd been, for Elizabeth who'd loved hearing him play, for the understanding that even if his hands didn't work anymore, they remembered. And remembering was better than nothing. That November afternoon he was playing Beethoven, poorly. The piano was missing keys. His fingers couldn't move like they used to. But the melody was there, fractured, broken, but recognizable to anyone who knew Beethoven, anyone who understood classical music. The four young men approached. The short one, Paul, spoke first. "Sir, excuse me, that piece you're playing, that's Beethoven, Moonlight Sonata, third movement." Arthur looked up, saw four young faces, British, well-dressed, the kind of young that doesn't understand old, that doesn't know what it's like to lose everything. It is, or it's trying to be. Piano's broken, hands are worse. "You play beautifully," George said, "even with a broken piano, even with whatever's making it difficult. You play like you've done this before, professionally." Arthur smiled, sad smile, the kind that acknowledges what used to be. "I did, long time ago. Different life, different hands, different world." "What's your name?" John asked. "Arthur Zimmerman." Paul went pale. "Arthur Zimmerman? The Arthur Zimmerman? The concert pianist? Carnegie Hall? I have your records. My mother played them. You're a legend." "Was a legend. Now I'm just an old man with broken hands playing a broken piano in a park. Legends die. I'm what comes after." Ringo knelt down. "What happened? How did you end up here?" "Same way everyone ends up anywhere. Choices, circumstances, bad luck. My hands stopped working. My wife died. My savings ran out. My children got busy. And suddenly I was 75 years old sleeping in a park, playing broken pianos because it's the only thing I know how to do, the only thing that makes me feel like I still exist." All four Beatles were crying, not polite tears, devastated tears, because Arthur Zimmerman represented something terrifying. That talent doesn't protect you, that success doesn't last, that you can be the best in the world and still end up on a park bench, broken, forgotten, invisible. "Does anyone know you're here?" Paul asked. "Does anyone know Arthur Zimmerman is homeless, playing in Central Park?" "Nobody knows. Nobody cares. The people who remember me think I'm dead. The people who see me don't know who I was. I'm just another homeless man, another problem, another person to ignore." Paul pulled out his wallet, took out all the cash, $300, handed it to Arthur. "This isn't enough. This doesn't fix anything, but it's what I have right now. Take it, please. You're Arthur Zimmerman. You taught me about music before you knew I existed. You deserve better than this." Arthur stared at the money. "I can't take this. You don't owe me anything." "I owe you everything. Every musician does. You showed us what was possible, what beauty sounds like, what dedication looks like. You gave your life to music, and music owes you. We owe you. Take it." John added, "We're going to do more than give you money. We're going to tell your story. We're going to make sure people know Arthur Zimmerman is here, is alive, needs help, deserves help. You're not going to be invisible anymore. Why do you care? You're young, famous, important. I'm just an old man who used to be someone." "You're still someone," George said. "You're Arthur Zimmerman, and that matters. That will always matter. Fame is temporary, but what you contributed to music is permanent. And we're going to make sure people remember. Make sure you're taken care of. Make sure your last years aren't spent on park benches." The Beatles spent 3 hours with Arthur, called reporters, called photographers, made sure everyone knew. Arthur Zimmerman, legendary pianist, living homeless, playing broken pianos in Central Park. The story spread instantly. By that evening, every newspaper in New York was running it. Classical legend found homeless. Beatles discover Arthur Zimmerman. Where have we failed our artists? By the next morning, Arthur had offers. From music conservatories wanting him to teach, from retirement communities offering free housing, from orchestras wanting him to consult, from people who'd loved his music wanting to help, wanting to make sure his final chapter wasn't tragedy. Arthur Zimmerman spent his last 5 years teaching at Juilliard. Free apartment, comfortable life. Students who hung on his every word, every story, every lesson about music and life, and the understanding that talent is gift, but persistence is choice. He died in 1969, age 80, peacefully, surrounded by students, by people who loved him, by proof that he'd mattered, that he still mattered, that being found wasn't the same as being saved, but it was close enough. At his funeral, Paul McCartney performed, played piano, one of Arthur's original compositions from 1920. Beautiful, honest, the kind of music that reminds you why art matters, why people who create beauty deserve to be honored, deserve to be remembered, deserve to die with dignity instead of invisibility. Paul's eulogy was simple. Arthur Zimmerman taught me that talent is responsibility, that if you're given gifts, you use them, you share them, you make the world more beautiful because you existed. Arthur did that for 70 years. He made the world more beautiful. And when the world forgot him, when circumstances destroyed him, he kept playing. On broken pianos, with broken hands. Because that's what artists do. They create, even when it's hard, even when nobody's watching, even when they've lost everything except the memory of what they used to be. Arthur Zimmerman was a legend, is a legend, will always be a legend, and I'm grateful we found him. Grateful we got to honor him. Grateful he knew, before he died, that he still mattered. The story of Arthur Zimmerman changed how New York treated homeless populations, changed how arts organizations thought about supporting aging artists, changed policies, changed programs, changed the understanding that people on streets used to be people with names, with talents, with stories worth hearing. A foundation was created, the Arthur Zimmerman Foundation, supporting aging classical musicians who'd fallen on hard times, making sure they didn't end up on park benches, making sure talent was honored, making sure Arthur's story wasn't repeated. November 1964, the Beatles found a famous pianist who'd fallen on hard times, playing a broken piano, being invisible, being forgotten, and they stopped, listened, recognized him, honored him, made sure the city knew, made sure he was saved, made sure his last years were dignified, made sure he died knowing he still mattered. And the city wept, not sad tears, grateful tears, ashamed tears. The understanding that Arthur Zimmerman had been there for months, playing broken pianos, being ignored, being failed. And it took 4 British musicians to stop, to care, to remember that invisible people used to be visible, that homeless people used to have homes, that broken people used to be whole. That's everything. Look, if this story moved you, if you've seen homeless people and wondered who they used to be, if you've ignored people who deserve to be seen, do me a favor, hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to remember that everyone has a story. Everyone used to be someone. Everyone deserves dignity. We've got 79 Beatles stories now, stories that prove seeing people matters, honoring talent matters, remembering that success is temporary, but humanity is permanent. Drop a comment and let me know. Have you helped someone invisible? Have you seen someone who used to be someone? Turn those notifications on, because these stories remind us to pay attention, to care, to see. Remember, everyone you ignore used to matter to someone, and Arthur Zimmerman proved that when the Beatles found him and made a city weep.